Welcome to Life Unscripted, Adulting Uncovered, the podcast for anyone out here doing their best to grow, heal, and not totally lose it in the process. I'm your host, Brennan, and if you ever felt like the only adult still figuring it out, don't worry, you're not alone. This is the place for you. Let's stop pretending and start talking.
What if the very thing keeping you from love, joy, and peace isn't out there in the world, but buried deep down inside you? What if the reason you feel stuck isn't because of what's happening today, but because of your past you've never laid to rest? Welcome back to Life Unscripted, Adulting Uncovered. Today, we're talking about something you may not even realize is affecting you until suddenly it just hits you. It's the emotional cleanup, that regret, the forgiveness. It's shedding the old emotional weight you've been silently carrying. I'm talking about making peace with your past. This was actually the precipice for me starting this podcast. Being in the dating pool, I noticed many people walking around with trauma pressed down deep. They don't even know that it's there. They often throw on a brave face. They say they want to be in a relationship, but the relationship they have with themselves is broken, or at least in most cases, it's severely injured. And when that's the case, there's no way they can have a healthy relationship with anyone else. These people haven't wanted to face the pain of a breakup, the loss of a loved one, the end of a marriage, or the confusion of being left behind. Whatever form that loss takes, it's holding them back. It quietly sends a message that says, I'm not ready, I'm not worthy, and I don't deserve X. You might not see it in yourself, but whole people can feel it, and they pull away. So why do we do this? Well, there's countless reasons people struggle to find peace with their past. Everyone processes trauma and pain differently. What's traumatic for one person may be manageable for someone else, and vice versa. Some of us can move on from heartbreak, loss, or adversity sometimes pretty quickly, while others hold on to it. They harbor feelings of anger, sadness, pain, or worse, regret. Letting go can feel like the person or the event wins, or they think holding on to that memory will protect them, but in nearly all cases, it just doesn't work out that way. Some people replay these past experiences on a mental loop, convinced they could have done something to prevent it or in some way change it, and sometimes it just isn't true. When fear that trauma might happen again stays unaddressed, it traps people in a mental cycle. It becomes part of their identity. They don't realize how much it's affecting them mentally. They're faced with constantly second-guessing themselves. Emotionally, they have numbness or fear of trusting again. Even physically, they experience tension headaches, sleepless nights, or fatigue out of nowhere. They become stuck in a psychological state that they just can't break free from. So what does it look like when you haven't made peace with our past? Well, one of the most obvious places I mentioned is in dating. People say they want to be in a relationship, but they're still carrying the emotional residue from their past breakup or their last traumatic incident. And it shows up as hesitation to be vulnerable, not wanting to share their life, their goals, say what they really want and need. And it's an unwillingness to show their true selves, fear of sharing parts of their lives, or they'll create hurdles for the other person to prove themselves until they feel safe. And that challenges creating intimacy. Sometimes they create walls, but mistake them as standards. Or someone may use independence as a disguise for fear of letting someone in, so they keep their distance. Even phone or text can be used to help safeguard someone who's hurt, taking excessively long to respond as if to keep distance from the other person and not let the emotional momentum kick up. And the result is they impede their ability to have connections and build closeness. So people who are whole, they'll pick up on that and they pull away. And suddenly, that person is stuck in the dating pool over and over, confused why nothing's working out. They often blame everyone else, but they rarely accept their fault in the matter. And honestly, you see this a lot with avoidant attachment styles. They find fault, they pull away, and they stay perpetually in the dating pool because they haven't dealt with their avoidant style. They file it away as being independent, or worse, they don't even know that it exists. And listen, that's just one example, and there are deeper, more severe manifestations of unresolved pain, friendships, family, work dynamics, and even the way someone talks to themselves. But look, I'm not a licensed therapist, and I don't want to speak to all of them. What I can say is that the pain that you don't process will follow you. It'll rewrite your story in ways you never see coming, quietly impacting your ability to love, connect, and most of all, be loved. So, if you watch this channel enough, you know that it's time I share a story. I like to lay the groundwork so that you know that I've lived it. And during my early 20s, I was a passenger in a very severe car accident. The driver lost control of the vehicle hit a curb, the curb went sideways, and we went up a metal pole. The driver was ejected 20 feet from the windshield, and my face went through the windshield. And I remember laying there as my face was covered in glass, and some bystander had seen the accident and came to our aid. I was able to mutter out my parents' phone number, who he called to let them know that we were in an accident, and he then called 911. And as I woke up, I was being wheeled away on a stretcher, and I remember hearing my mom's voice telling me I was going to be okay and that she was there and reassuring me. And after several hours of surgery, that crash left me with 160 stitches in my face. I bit my tongue in half. I cracked my skull. I dislocated my right arm. I damaged all the nerves in my left arm, and I was unable to open and close my hand for several weeks. As you would imagine, it was a long and painful recovery process full of physical therapy, doctor's appointment, surgeon's appointment, and a lot of time spent in bed. Thankfully, I recovered, but emotionally, I carried resentment about that for years. I blamed the driver, I blamed myself, and 2 decades later, I still have the scars on my body to remind me of that experience. And honestly, for many years, I didn't like seeing these scars. But instead of seeing them as a mark of shame, I see them as part of my story. A life once lived without the values I hold today. A chapter that shaped who I am. And now, frankly, sometimes I see them and I'm like, wow, these look pretty cool. But listen, it wasn't easy for me to get there. And for a long time, I pointed fingers at others. Eventually, I realized the person I needed to forgive most was me. I was a 21-year-old kid. I wasn't thinking beyond 24 hours. And the people and choices I made then don't reflect the character I have and expect today. Today, that experience strengthened my mental fortitude. It keeps me grounded, knowing that I have a larger purpose, and that obviously wasn't my time to go. It helps me empathize when I see others who have scars from traumatic injury or broken bones, knowing that I lived it. I understand what they're going through, and it gives me an opportunity to connect with someone. And anytime I see someone that has a scar on their face, I'm immediately interested in their story. But you know, it also reminds me of the love and support that I received during that recovery. And it shows me that I'm resilient, I'm still here, and that my story has weight, and that matters. So why does making peace with your past matter? When you make peace with your past, you give yourself permission to stop reliving it. You reduce anxiety, you foster acceptance, and you get the relief of not replaying that same scene over and over in your head. You can breathe without feeling heavy. You build empathy for yourself, and through that, you become a better partner, friend, a parent, a leader, and overall, just a better human. Before, you may be distracted and distant and in some type of survival mode, avoiding connections that you honestly crave. Now, you notice the small joys in life, the safe feeling that you have, that love doesn't need to be painful, or that it's a risk. But most of all, you finally step into the present. And that's where change happens. That's where connections live. And that's where your new chapter begins. And listen, if you're stuck in the past or you have some deep-rooted trauma that you haven't worked through, please talk to someone. A licensed, competent professional can help you work through it and untangle some of the knots you've built up over the years. And you can learn how to carry your past differently. Because remember, your past is a chapter. It's not the whole book. Don't keep reading the same chapter till the pages are worn out. Holding all this inside limits your ability to show up for yourself and write the next chapter. And until you find peace with your past, you'll be running on empty, unable to pour into the people who matter most, the relationships you want, or the people you want to care about you. So guys, I feel like I've said enough today. As always, if something hit, share it with someone else. And remember, life is better when we stop pretending and start talking. Catch you next time.